It's a rivalry game in LA tonight as the Kings host the Golden Knights. That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 18 years, new episode out today, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Well, the Kings are back in action tonight. It is game 2 of a mini 3-game homestand, the second game after the Four Nations face-off, and a big Pacific Division showdown as the LA Kings are hosting the Vegas Golden Knights. Kings checking in with a record of 30-17-7, third place in the Pacific Division, 7th in the Western Conference, 13th in the NHL. The Kings have 67 points in 54 games. They're coming off a 5-3 home win against the Utah Hockey Club this past Saturday. Kings are 18-3-2 on home ice. That is the best home ice winning percentage in the NHL. Tonight's opponent, the Vegas Golden Knights, checks in with a record of 34-17-6. Golden Knights are in first place in the Pacific Division, third best in the Western Conference, and have the fourth most points in the NHL with 74 points in 57 games. Vegas this season has been a little bit hot and cold. They started the year with 3 straight wins, then they lost 3 in a row, then they won 4 in a row. In early December, they were playing their best stretch of games so far this season when they won 13 of 15. However, lately they've been a little bit cold. From January 9th to February 4th, they had a record of 3-8-3. However, they are currently riding a little 3-game winning streak. In their last game, Golden Knights won their first game back after the Four Nations break. They beat the Vancouver Canucks by a score of 3-1. That game was in Las Vegas. Vegas on the road this year, 14-11-3. They are a much better team at home than they are on the road, similarly to the LA Kings, although not quite as good as the Kings at home. As for LA, leading scorer is I almost said Andre Kopitar, Adrian Kempe, who has 69 points. Kempe also leading the team in goals with 25. As for the Golden Knights, they are led in points by Jack Eichel. He has 69, just played in the Four Nations face-off for the U.S. And their leading goal scorer is Pavel Dorofeev. He has 23 goals. Kings will start Darcy Kemper in net. He checks in with a record of 17-6-6, 2.22 goals against average, fourth best in the NHL, and a .918 save percentage, also fourth best in the NHL. Darcy Kemper, 9-1-1 at home this season. He's currently riding a 3-game winning streak. In the Kings' last game against the Utah Hockey Club, Darcy had a little bit of an off game, I thought, by his standards, allowed 3 goals on 28 shots, but he was coming off 17 days rest, so perhaps a little bit rusty. Kemper is 1-0 against the Vegas Golden Knights this season, allowing 3 goals on 26 shots in a 6-3 win in Los Angeles back on October the 30th. As for the Vegas Golden Knights, they're expected to start former Stanley Cup winning goalie Aiden Hill in net. Hill checks in with a record of 10-4-2, 2.59 goals against average, a .903 save percentage. He is significantly better at home than he is on the road. He has a record of 7-7-2 away from home this season with a 2.90 goals against average and an .890 save percentage. At home, he's 14-3-2, 2.33 goals against average and .914 save percentage. So again, numbers much better at home than on the road. In his last start, a strong one in that game against the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday, he allowed 1 goal on 34 shots. He has yet to face the LA Kings this season. In their previous 2 meetings, it was Ilya Samsonov, their number 2 goalie, in net against the Kings, but not expected to be the case tonight. It looks like number 1 goalie Aiden Hill will start for Vegas. Checking the matchup by the numbers team-wise, the Kings are 19th in the NHL in goals scored per game, average goals per game, 2.87. Vegas is 7th in the league, scoring 3.28 goals per game. Kings are 5th in the NHL in goals allowed per game, 2.54. Vegas, though, right behind the Kings, 6th in the NHL, allowing 2.7 goals per game. So Vegas is at least statistically, getting it done on both ends of the ice so far this year. The Kings power play, 29th in the NHL at 15.2%. We've talked about it, though. Horrible on the road, much better at home. Vegas, meanwhile, 4th in the NHL on the power play, 27.4%. So the Kings are going to have to try and stay out of the box tonight. The Kings, though, are 5th in the league on the penalty kill. If they do take a penalty, their PK's been good this year, although not great against Utah in their last game, allowing 2 power play goals. But on the season, the Kings are killing off 81.9% of the power plays against. Vegas Golden Knights, not so good on the penalty kill, 21st in the NHL at 77.1%. Injuries for the LA Kings, none. The Kings are fully healthy, which is a great luxury at this point of the season. As for the Vegas Golden Knights, they'll be without forward William Karlsson. He's on injured reserve with a lower body injury. And defenseman Shea Theodore is out with an arm injury that he suffered in the Four Nations faceoff when he was hit into the boards by LA Kings forward Adrian Kempe. Theodore, of course, playing for Team Canada, Kempe for Sweden. Theodore is listed as week to week. I wouldn't be surprised if he was placed on long-term injured reserve and the Golden Knights used his cap space to make additions at the trade deadline, and then he'd be suddenly healthy to play for the playoffs. Now, the Vegas Golden Knights are a team that has used this loophole before, specifically with their captain, Mark Stone, and they get kind of made fun of a little bit, but I don't blame them. It might seem like a circumvention of the salary cap, but the NHL allows it. And I think, frankly, teams that are put in a situation like this that don't take advantage of the situation are pretty stupid. Now, I don't like the fact that there's basically no salary cap in the postseason and the teams could do this. I wish the NHL would change that rule. But until they do, right, all's fair in love and war, as they say. And I don't blame the Vegas Golden Knights for using what's in the rules to their advantage. And I know they kind of get criticized for it, but I don't blame them one bit. As for any kind of retaliation against Adrian Kempe tonight by the Vegas Golden Knights for that hit on Shea Theodore, I wouldn't think so. The hit by Kempe was clean and frankly routine, and it was just more of a freak accident. It was kind of the way that Theodore's arm went into the boards. So we'll keep an eye on it, but I would be surprised if there was any kind of retaliation against Adrian Kempe. As I mentioned, the Kings and Golden Knights have met twice this season. First meeting was in Las Vegas on October the 22nd. The Golden Knights rolled to a 6-1 win in that one. They jumped out to a 3-0 lead, including scoring a pair of early power play goals and never looked back. Tomas Hertl had 2 goals in the win in that one. Warren Fogle had the lone goal for LA, and David Riddick was in net. He allowed 6 goals on 30 shots in taking the loss. Second meeting was a different story in LA, with the Kings scoring 6 goals this time en route to a 6-3 win. LA had 6 different goal scorers, and Darcy Kemper was in net, as we mentioned earlier, allowing 3 goals on 36 shots. I was at that game as a fan. I'm going tonight as a fan again, and I hope to have the same feeling. It was a really fun night, as that was the same night the Dodgers clinched the World Series. In between the second and third period, they had the final out up on the Jumbotron, and it was a party-like atmosphere, and the party was kept going by the Kings getting a nice win over Vegas. So hopefully another fun night at Crypto.com Arena coming up tonight, as it is a big one, with the LA Kings hosting the first place team in the Pacific Division, team they're chasing, the Vegas Golden Knights. As for the Kings' keys to victory, we'll talk about that and more coming up next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Looking for a snack that is both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, with each 1 ounce serving holding 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether you're snacking at your desk or on a road trip or just need a quick protein boost. And if you love the cracking open of every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios is a snack that works as hard as you do. Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, big one coming up tonight. LA Kings against the Vegas Golden Knights, a couple of the top teams in the Pacific Division. And how about the keys to victory for the LA Kings tonight? Well, first and foremost, I think get off to a good start. In both of the previous meetings, we have seen the team that got off to a good start skate to victory. In Vegas, it was the Golden Knights. They jumped out to a 3-0 lead in the first period. In LA, it was the Kings leading 2-0 after the first period. So the team that likely gets off first, gets off to a good start, gets that first goal, certainly looks to have an advantage. Kings are 12-1-1 on home ice this season when they score that first goal. Also, kind of along the same lines, make home ice matter. The home team has won each game so far in the season series. Obviously, the Kings are one of the best teams on home ice in the entire NHL. Use that to your advantage. Use the energy of the crowd. Get off to that good start and make home ice important. And I think for the Kings, keep the special teams even. If you're going to lose this game, don't lose it because of the special teams. Now, Vegas does have a very good power play. The Kings, though, pretty good against penalty kill, but stay out of the box as much as possible. And if you do go shorthanded, make sure the penalty kill is playing up to their standards. But I think the Kings would like to keep this game at 5-on-5. Didn't, again, have a great penalty kill against Utah, allowing those 2 power play goals. I think if the Kings allow 2 power play goals against Vegas tonight, I do not think that they will be able to get a victory. Checking out the projected lineup for the LA Kings tonight, it's expected to be the exact same lineup we saw in their first game back from the Four Nations break against Utah, as they will continue with that 11-7 setup. The forwards, Anze Kopitar with Alex Turcotte and Adrian Kempe. Kempe has cooled off a little bit. Would like to see that top line get a goal tonight. I think they would really need him to get that going. The second line, I should say, listed is Philip Deneau with Warren Fogle and Trevor Moore. Though ice time, it's pretty even between the second and third line. The third line of Quinton Byfield with Kevin Fiala and Alex Laferriere. That third line was the best line for the Kings against the Utah Hockey Club. I think that line needs to be one of the best teams for the Kings going forward if they're going to have success. Quinton Byfield providing the energy. Alex Laferriere was a great against the Utah Hockey Club. And Kevin Fiala has been fantastic in February. Hopefully that third line can keep things going tonight. As for the fourth line, it'll be Trevor Lewis with Tanner Jeannot on one of the wings. And interesting, Jim Hiller has been doing an interesting thing with the lines. And I think it's a kind of a situational thing as well. But there have been times when you've seen that extra winger rotating with Lewis and Jeannot. But you've also seen times where Alex Turcotte will get placed on that fourth line and he'll have the extra winger rotating through the top line with Anze Kopitar and Adrian Kempe. So a little bit of an interesting wrinkle that Jim Hiller uses kind of situationally with that. As far as the defensive pairings, Vladislav Gavrikov and Mikey Anderson back together on that top line. Drew Doughty, who has been so good of late, had the big game against Utah with a goal and 2 assists. Now on the second line with Joel Edmondson. And then you've got Jacob Omarara with Jordan Spence and Brant Clark expected to be the extra defenseman. As we mentioned, Darcy Kemper in net. David Riddick will be the backup. This is a big game tonight. Anytime you have these division matchups, they're big games. And specifically when you are chasing a team that is in first place. The Vegas Golden Knights, I mentioned the record, 34-17-6 for 74 points. The Oilers are right now in second place, 34-19-4 for 72 points. So they're 2 points back of Vegas. Edmonton has absolutely been blown out their first 2 games back over the weekend. So not sad to see that one bit. The Kings are in third place where they've been most of the year, 30-17-7 for 67 points. So 5 points back of Edmonton. The Kings do have 3 games in hand on Vegas. So certainly the way it appears, it's going to be Vegas and Edmonton battling it out for the top spot in the division. The team that comes up in second place will be who the Kings will likely face in the first round of the playoffs. But there's still a battle for home ice, and certainly the Kings haven't conceded that they're going to not be able to take a run at the division, but it really does start tonight. It's a 4-point game tonight. Right now, again, the Kings are sitting 7 points back of Vegas. If they win, even with my limited math skills, they're 5 points back. If they lose, then they're 9 points back. So again, it's that big 4-point swing. So a big opportunity for the Kings tonight, and really need a win, I think, if they're really going to have any kind of plans at trying to catch Vegas or Edmonton and be in first in the division. They're going to have to obviously play a lot of good hockey. Of course, they are at home for the majority of the games the rest of the way, so that should bode well for them. And then if you're looking at the Kings trying to hold off the team that's chasing them, that's the Vancouver Canucks, a record of 26-20-11 for 63 points. So the Kings have a 4-point lead on Vancouver, and the Kings have played 2 fewer games than the Canucks. So the Kings have games in hand on all the teams that they're either chasing or the teams that they're trying to hold off to at least keep that 3rd spot in the Pacific Division. Vancouver is also right now the final wildcard team in the Western Conference. I will say the Kings haven't been great against fellow Pacific Division teams this season. The record 7-8-1 on the season. Now, the 2 teams that they will most likely face in the first round of the playoffs, either Edmonton or Vegas. The Kings are 2-2 against so far. Probably not a surprise. 2-0 against Vegas and Edmonton at home. 0-2 against Vegas and Edmonton on the road. All right, shifting gears a little bit. There was a game last night on Sunday at Crypto.com Arena with the Skate for LA Strong game supporting the fiery recovery efforts in Los Angeles. I watched the game on TV. Certainly seemed like a fun event. Some fun celebrities involved in that one. Probably most notably Will Ferrell, who we all know is a legitimate hardcore Kings fan. Apparently, a few of the former NHL players that were involved were thought that they were going to get NHL contracts based on their performance. I know you're trying to put on a show, but maybe let some of the first responders and the celebrities score a few goals. But anyway, it did seem like a very good time. Kudos to the LA Kings for putting on this event. And of course, the most important part, all the proceeds and donations going to help the fire victims in Los Angeles. So again, putting on an event like that in a relatively short amount of time is quite an accomplishment. It seemed like it went off pretty well without too many issues. And again, kudos to the Kings for putting on that game to help out the fire victims in LA. Again, it looked like a really fun time. We didn't have a chance to talk about this on Saturday because we were busy talking about the Kings win over the Utah Hockey Club. But it was officially announced that the LA Kings are going to be hosting the 2025 NHL draft that's coming up on June the 27th and 28th. Just the second time that Los Angeles has hosted the NHL draft. Last time was in 2010. I was lucky enough to get out there for some of that. Hopefully you did as well. But that was at Staples Center. This time around, it's going to be across the street at the Peacock Theater. Now, Staples Center holds about 20,000. The Peacock Theater holds about 7,000. So I don't know exactly when or how many tickets would be available for fans to be able to go. But if that's something on your list that you're looking at to attend, I would suggest keeping an eye out for that as soon as possible. If I hear anything about tickets being available, I'll certainly announce it on the show. If you're a season ticket member, I'd probably check in on your representative there, your ticket rep, and make sure you tell him or her to keep you in mind if you're looking for tickets, because I'm sure season ticket holders will get preference over things like that. But again, NHL draft will be in Los Angeles, and it'll be different this year. And I assume this is part of the reason why they're having it at the Peacock Theater and not at Staples Center. But in a cost-cutting move, the NHL has decided that teams will not be traveling to the draft anymore. If you've watched the NHL draft before, the player's name will get called. He'll come down. There'll be a whole slew of team representatives up there, from scouts to GMs to maybe a player or two, and they welcome the team and they pose for pictures. That's not going to happen anymore. The player will get drafted. He'll come out of the stands. He'll shake Gary Bettman's hand. They will take a picture of them holding a jersey, and then he'll leave. All of the team representatives will be at their own headquarters. So this is now like the NFL, like the NBA, where the teams are staying in their headquarters and then phoning in the draft pick. And then, so that's how it's going now. So a little bit different than we've seen historically with the NHL draft. Again, cost-cutting move. I think probably COVID and all the things that we've seen now, getting used to. Of course, during COVID, the NHL draft was not obviously players in person, and teams stayed home. And I think the league was like, you know what, this worked out pretty well. Let's switch to this. All the other leagues are doing it too. So that's what the NHL is doing this year. Speaking of NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman, he was in Los Angeles as part of the official announcement of announcing that the NHL draft was going to be in LA. He did speak briefly with the media, and he was asked about an outdoor game in Los Angeles, and Bettman said, quote, "It's on the list of things to discuss," end quote. That's basically saying, it's not going to happen anytime soon. And because the LA is hosting the draft. I think the league likes to kind of move these marquee league events around. So having the draft in LA and then having an outdoor game the next year probably isn't going to happen. It's probably going to be a few years before LA sees another outdoor game. But I went to the Kings Ducks game at Dodger Stadium. Didn't like the result back in 2014, but that was a good year for the Kings anyway. But it was a very cool event. And I also got to go to the Kings Sharks outdoor game in Levi Stadium up in Santa Clara back in 2015. They're really cool events to attend in person. You kind of go because of the uniqueness of it. It's not a great vantage point because, I was sitting up high, but it's still unique. It's still fun. And hopefully LA will get an outdoor game here coming up in the near future. We have an outdoor game coming up this weekend. That is at Ohio Stadium, the horseshoe they used to call it. It's not a horseshoe anymore, but the Blue Jackets and the Red Wings are playing an outdoor game. So that should be fun. The Ontario Reign are all alone in first place. We will give you the details on that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings. That is coming up next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets for a same-game parlay. FanDuel's live betting feature keeps you engaged in every moment of the exciting action, whether you're looking for your team to post a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three-pointer. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Did want to give you a quick rain report as the LA Kings AHL affiliate. The Ontario Reign were in action on Sunday, and they were able to defeat the Calgary Wranglers 2-1 in a shootout. The Reign were down 1-0 after the first period, but Captain Joe Hickett scored his third goal of the season. Jeff Malott and Charles Udon with the assists to tie it up. After a scoreless third period, we would have a scoreless overtime. The game would go to a shootout with Ontario's Glenn Godden and Charles Udon each scoring in the shootout, while goalie Phoenix Copley stopped both shooters that he faced, and the Reign would skate off with a 2-1 shootout victory for Copley. He's now 16-9-2 on the season, and the Reign improved to 31-15-3, and with those 2 points, moved into sole possession of first place in the AHL's Pacific Division, 1 point up on Calgary and the Coachella Valley Firebirds. So congrats to the Ontario Reign, who are continuing to have a fine season. Also this weekend, don't know if you saw it or not, but the Kings and the Reign celebrated their only AHL championship team. That was the 2014-15 Manchester Monarchs, who won the Calder Cup that year as the champions in the AHL. Now, you may or may not know about the Manchester Monarchs, who back in the day beat the Utica Comets in 5 games to win that championship. Again, that was in 2014-15. So this was the 10-year anniversary of that team, and so they had a celebration. Saturday, the team, or at least part of the team, was at the Kings-Utah game, and then on Sunday, they were honored during the Calgary-Ontario Reign game. The Manchester Monarchs were at one time the Kings AHL affiliate. They were in Manchester, New Hampshire, and they played there for several seasons, but in their final year before they moved to Southern California, they won the championship, so a little bit bittersweet there for the good folks in Manchester, New Hampshire. At least they kind of went out with a bang, but obviously sad for them to lose their team. As far as that championship team, there were certainly some very familiar names on there, possibly to some of you. Certainly Adrian Kempe is the biggest name from that team. Now, he only played 3 regular season games, but apparently the Kings sent him back to Manchester to be a part of the playoffs. He played in 17 of the 19 playoff games and scored 8 goals. Also, Paul Bissonnette was a part of that team. You might know the name. He has certainly made a name for himself as a hockey broadcaster, now working for TNT. Also does some work in Canada as well. He was also one of the MCs at the Kings charity game on Saturday. Former King defenseman Derek Forbert was on that Manchester Monarchs championship team. Colin Miller, longtime NHL defenseman who never ended up playing with the Kings, was on that team, and some other names you might remember. Kevin Graval, JF Berube, Nick Dowd, Nick Shore, and Jordan Wheel were part of that championship team. It would be great if the Ontario Reign, who are having a great season this year, could also get an AHL title, their first AHL title since moving to Ontario on the 10-year anniversary of the franchise's only championship. And if you don't know why that all went down, obviously, I think the Kings had a nice relationship with the folks in Manchester, New Hampshire, but it's a lot more convenient to have your AHL team locally where your NHL team is. For example, Kings goalie Darcy Kemper, right before the break, had that personal issue, ended up missing the game, and the Kings were able to very easily call up Phoenix Copley to be the emergency backup. If they had been in Manchester, New Hampshire, that's a lot more difficult. He's got to catch a flight and fly all the way across the country. So it's just way, way more convenient for player call-ups. It's obviously much more convenient to be able to scout and work with and train your AHL team when they're literally in the same area, or in the case of the Kings and Ontario Reign, they share the same building. The Reign train and practice at the Toyota Sports Performance Center in El Segundo. So they're right there. If you're Rob Blake and you want to see how Samuel Fagimo is doing, how does he look in practice, you just go watch practice. He's right there. So it's just, they train there in the same place. They can interact with all the same staff, trainers, goalie coaches, all that kind of stuff. So it's just so much more convenient to have your AHL affiliate in the same area as your NHL team. A lot of teams around the NHL have moved to this type of thing, where there were at times they would have their teams all over the place, but now they've all pretty much worked it out to where they're at least in the same time zone as their AHL affiliates. And by the way, those old Manchester Monarchs jerseys are pretty cool. As a jersey collector, I have a notable omission from my collection is getting an old Manchester Monarchs jersey. Maybe I'll rectify that situation one day. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Really looking forward to tonight's game against the Golden Knights. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up obviously on tomorrow's show, a full recap of the Kings Golden Knights game, and looking forward to hopefully talking about a big LA Kings victory. If you want to stay connected with the show, several ways to do it. You want to send an email, lockedoneddie@gmail.com is the email address. That's EDDIE. You're also more than welcome to post your thoughts if you're watching on the YouTube channel on the comment section. If you want to stay connected on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, which I'm still not even close to knowing how to use, but it's there if you want to go and check things out there. Hopefully that'll be a work in progress. All right, I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. Looking forward to the Kings Golden Knights tonight. And as always, go Kings go.